more people in it than it's ever had in its history. Mr. Johnson, forgive me.
Thank you.
They have limited time, Mr. Johnson.
So I'm not trying to talk you out.
I'm sure you're not trying to talk me down the clock.
I wouldn't dream of that.
You wouldn't dream of that, would you, Mr. Johnson?
I wouldn't.
That's Leslie Thomas, KC, who was representing the Federation of Ethnic Minority Healthcare Organisation at last week's public inquiry, which we won't mention for obvious reasons. Seeing straight through our Boris Johnson and his waffle, like when he did here when he was talking about the protective measures for vulnerable minorities.
For one moment, suggesting that you didn't try to find out why. What my question was aimed at is what you did, what measures, protective measures, did you put in place to protect these vulnerable groups? That was my question. But let me move on, because time is short. Let me move on to topic.
Well, so we put in all sorts. It would be fair to say.
That's the look of a man who knows exactly what our Spaffer Johnson is doing, isn't it? He's not very impressed, is he? Also, he clearly doesn't suffer fools gladly as well, judging by the way he's acting, especially when he brought up quite an important subject on institutional racism.
That's what it seems to me to be.
Well, forgive me, Mr. Johnson, it's more than that. We had your former Health Secretary, Mr. Hancock, sitting where you were sitting, I believe last Friday, and he agreed with me, and I'm sure you will agree with me, that we can also agree that part of the disproportionate impact on the black, Asian and minority ethnic communities, including healthcare workers, was as a result of institutional racism within the NHS and within the system. Can we agree on that?
I'm not certain, I'm afraid to say, that I've seen evidence to support that.
Well,
I'd be.
You are unaware of the report done by Public Health England into the NHS that Mr. Hancock was telling us about, where it was talking about institutional racism. You're completely unaware of that as Prime Minister?
I haven't. I've got to confess to you, seen that report. The information that I had was that wasn't the information that I had did not mention that as a factor.
In other words, I wasn't there. I didn't see it. Nobody told me. You must remember, pleb, I was only the Prime Minister, you know. Also, you must spare some sympathy. I survived a very vicious attack from a very delicious and also very creamy birthday cake at the time, you know. Pathetic, innit? But then after the waffle of nothingness, our fantastic KC Leslie Thomas decided to be blunt.
It's ever had
Mr. Johnson.
Forgive me.
Thank you.
They have limited time, Mr. Johnson.
So I'm not trying to talk you out.
I'm sure you're not trying to talk me down the clock.
I wouldn't dream of that.
You wouldn't dream of that, would you, Mr. Johnson?
I wouldn't.
No. Right, I have two more topics and I've finished. Given the first indications of starkly disproportionate rates of infection and mortality in ethnic minority communities, which began to emerge in late March, early April, can we agree on this? Can we agree that there were earlier opportunities for more substantial engagement? Can we agree on that?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, let me be blunt. Your government could have done a lot more, a lot earlier.
Well, we did whatever we could to get all our staff the equipment that we.
It wasn't enough, Mr. Johnson, was it?
Well, we worked incredibly hard and fast to get people the equipment we needed. That doesn't mean that I'm not conscious of the immense effort.
People we were clapping for. Do you remember?
I do. And I am deeply conscious of the sacrifice that they made.
Last topic, and then I sit down and I'll shut up. At paragraph 656 of your witness statement, you say, quote, "I was not provided with and did not consider any equality impact assessments when making decisions about imposing, easing, or making exceptions to NPIs. But that's not to say I did not receive and consider many documents containing details of the effects of lockdown across society or equalities and distributional impacts," end of quote. Question. In the absence of such assessments, and that's the equality impact assessments, can you shed light on the sources of intelligence or information that informed your understanding of the disproportionate impact of NPIs on ethnic minority groups? What were the sources of your intelligence and information?
Well, there was data that I saw. I can't tell you exactly the provenance, but there was data that suggested that I think when you come to lockdowns, people from the Bangladeshi community were 4 times more likely to be engaged in closed sectors. People from the Pakistani community were, I think, twice as likely to be engaged in closed sectors. From my own extensive work as chairman of Transport for London and all the work I did as mayor had taught me the massive disproportionate impact measures such as closures of retail, hospitality, and so on were likely to have on those very groups. So I didn't need.
You didn't need the intelligence.
I knew.
You knew.
I was getting data, but I also knew that these measures were likely to be disproportionate in their.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Malay, I concede another 30 seconds under my time. Thank you.
Yes, that's the future leader the headbangers are wanting back to replace our Prime Minister. And Leslie Thomas is right that Spaffer's government could have done a hell of a lot more, a hell of a lot earlier. But they didn't really care, really. They weren't that bothered. Also, when Spaffer was in charge, everything was well-beating. We're well-beating on this and well-beating on that. Now it's a case of, well, everybody was doing their best. Also, the clapping line, brilliant. And it also shows that Spaffer's waffle just showed how incredibly unsuitable for the position of Prime Minister he really was. And they want him back. Unbelievable. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. What do you think of Casey Leslie Thomas? I thought he was absolutely brilliant. But anyway, I'll leave the video here and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.